Hey everyone, I just started playing FE12 for the first time, and of course I picked the hardest difficulty available because that's what I do. Near the end of the prologues with a mercenary, Kris, I wondered if I could do it with what's generally considered the worst class in Fire Emblem, an archer, and I got sick of thinking about growth routing, so I just did 0% growths on top of that. There are some options here during character creation about like your history. I picked this one that gives you +2 to defense, and then diversity gives you +1 to strength magic. The third one is just growth, so that doesn't do anything. I know it seems more reasonable to do +2 to strength magic and +1 to defense, so like reverse of what I did. But I'll explain why I couldn't do that when it comes up. And turned off combat animations there. I forgot to do fast movement and fast text because I'm dumb, but sorry about that. And now because the archer has a terrible base 5 move, you can't even reach that lancer on turn 1. And if you move forward to like bring him in when he gets that hit on you, you can't counter because you're an archer. That doesn't actually speed up the chapter, so I just stood still on player turn 1. The rest of this is pretty straightforward. You don't even need the extra defense that I got from character creation on this map, but having at least 1 point of extra strength does let you finish one turn faster than otherwise. Now, I do kind of want to call this a quote-unquote LTC, but an LTC given that your avatar is an archer, and not an LTC to the point of grinding low percent crits or unreasonable sequences of dodges. So I'm not suggesting that an archer, Kris, is better or faster than anything else, because I don't know this game very well. I just thought it would be fun exercise to see how fast I can go with such a generally bad class as the avatar character. On that note, though, in all the prologues, there are only 2 required dodges and 1 required crit, and they're both pretty reasonable in context, so we'll see that when we get to it. Now, Prologue 2 is definitely the dumbest of the prologues for an archer, Kris, because all he can really do is ping-pong these cavaliers. This first one is named Luke. Just ping-pong this guy back and forth between the archers, using the fort for healing and using vulneraries. One thing you need to know right away, of course, is that the AI in this game prioritizes dealing the most damage, regardless of whether they get countered or whether they could otherwise set up kills for their fellow units. So you need to know the order that enemy attacks come in and bait them in with low defense units into favorable positions. That's really the bread and butter of playing on hard 3, as far as I've gotten in the game, which isn't very far. And you can see when I had both archers on forts, Ryan, the second archer, is prioritized because he has lower defense than Kris, but when Ryan is on a fort and Kris isn't, as far as I can tell, it's just a coin flip of 50-50. Unfortunately, there just isn't much interesting. There aren't many interesting things going on here in this prologue. Like I said, we're just passing him back and forth because archers can't counter at 1 range, so there's just nothing else you can really do. And the Cavalier is pretty beefy on this difficulty, so it takes a while. And again, I apologize for not setting the game speed to fast. I don't know why I forgot about that. And now we're just doing the same thing here with the second Cavalier, Rhodey. But I promise that the prologues do pick up after this one. This is the gatekeeper to things being more interesting. And I've got to be really careful about using vulneraries, because I didn't use one on last turn, right? I just took the fort healing for Kris, who I named KBM, but his default name is Kris. Yeah, I use all of the vulnerary charges available to get through the prologues, like all of them. They're all pretty deliberate, so we do need to be careful and conserve those where we can. But I am going to have to use one here on this turn. And obviously, this turn would play a little differently if I didn't have that extra defense. So it does come in handy here. But this isn't actually where I required it. It's the next one where that extra defense, or the +2 defense character creation option was required. So like I was saying, Prologue 3 is the reason I needed the +2 defense start. And we can also see that AI prioritization I was talking about isn't an exact science. Because even with only 6 defense on Rhodey here on the far right, this fighter, and he also has weapon triangle advantage against Rhodey's lance, sometimes he will still choose to attack Kris up at the top for some reason that I cannot understand. Similarly, I need that mercenary to attack someone on the fort to take advantage of the healing. But the only way to do that is for him to observe Kris and Ryan at the same defense, and then flip a coin in favor of Ryan. Otherwise, he would just go attack Kris up at the top, which is no good. Strangely, Luke also has lower defense than both archers when Ryan's on the fort, but I guess it's the mercenary's weapon triangle disadvantage. Actually, no, Luke has the sword right now, so I don't even know why he won't pick Luke, but he doesn't. So we were able to seal off Rhodey in the corner without needing to heal him, which is really nice. And now it's time to pick off this mercenary, and because of the fort's healing on Ryan, we are able to draw in this last fighter without Ryan dying. It does draw him in on the fort, but there's really nothing I can do about that. So we'll just have to reset until we get the hits we need, because of course forts provide an extra 20% to, or not 20% exactly, but an extra 20 to your avoid. I wish I had displayed Sita's attack range on turn 1, because it is massive. It covers most of the map. There you go. You can see that everything I'm doing in this map is driven by the fact that I need to avoid pulling in Sita before I'm ready. And actually the only unit we have who can even survive one round of combat with Sita is Luke, and that's only if he is not wielding the Iron Sword. If he either has no weapon or the Iron Lance, he will survive being doubled, but weapon triangle advantage if he has the sword will give Sita an extra point of damage on both hits and kill him. But as it is, he is able to survive being doubled, and we easily pick her off with the bonus damage from our archers. Now, if you're curious about how I'm routing experience, like who I'm feeding the kills to, I didn't give it much thought because I wasn't planning to take any of this past the prologues, and so it wouldn't really matter. Weapon rank sort of matters. I think Kris does upgrade his weapon rank at some point, but the experience, it doesn't really matter. Now, we've got some unskippable dialogue with Katarina here, because we're given a dialogue prompt at the end of this dialogue. The choice you make determines which named unit is going to be the boss of Prologue 4, and you 1,000,000% want to pick the one where Athena is the boss, because she's amazing. She has high speed and high base strength. She can use steel weapons, so she doubles a lot of enemies, she does a lot of damage. She's got a decent amount of HP, so she's a great unit who we definitely want to have in our army for the rest of the prologues. Now, Prologue 4 is pretty fun. Sita joins us on her Pegasus, and she's great because she can double most of the enemies on this map and a lot of other maps. So it's surprising then that we're holding the front line with Luke instead of Sita, but you'll see why that is. And we still don't have access to the preparations menu before the fight, so only Ryan is able to get in position to fight the archer across the wall, rather than doing that with Kris, who is stronger. And of course, Ryan, if he attacked the archer here, he would get countered and then die on enemy phase, so we hit the Myrmidon instead. Now, having an archer Kris does afford a unique opportunity here in the pocket, because we can occupy both of these squares along the wall and not lose our ability to counter. Whereas, normally if you put another unit there, the archer would just attack them and not get countered. So I sort of fell back one square with Luke to draw the enemies in, and this was the only setup I could find to pull in Athena to this position, where we can take some pot shots at her and chip her down from across the wall, which helps out a lot. Ryan finally finishes off this archer, and we'll move Riss out of the way to let Kris start taking shots at Athena. And of course we'll heal up Luke, because we'll need a little help from him later. So again, there's some more added value from having a second archer. And an obvious question here is whether you would get all that value and more by having a mage Kris, because mages can counter at one range. And I don't actually know the answer to that question. I haven't played through the prologues with a mage Kris, but I did check and saw that the base stats on a mage Kris are absolutely embarrassing. And so I'm not sure what chapters 2 and 3 would end up looking like with a mage Kris, because he's going to be constantly be targeted. Well, he or her, sorry, will be constantly be targeted by the enemies for having low defense. So I'm not sure how that would even work out. Back to the matter at hand. We opened up a spot behind Sita for Riss to heal her, And now we're going to do the same sort of strategy as before, where we fall back 1 square, bring her in back in range of our archer, so we can finish her off next player phase. And we did manage to kill that Myrmidon across the wall, which is great. Right, so on player phase here, Athena is just about done. We have to take a fairly uncomfortable 77 shot to take her down. And then Sita can get healed and double that mercenary, who will then be killed by Ryan. And then we can run Luke up to the front line to block off the last Myrmidon. So of course, Sita's ability to double enemies is pretty huge. Now you'll notice, this is really, really close to, if I could poke down this Myrmidon with both Luke and Rhodey, and then have the Myrmidon suicide on enemy phase, that would technically be a 1 turn faster clear, but you can see that's not happening. He will 1 round Rhodey to death, and he just does, Luke can't survive player and enemy phase combat with this Myrmidon. So it's really, really close to being 1 turn faster clear, but I just couldn't get the numbers for it. I spent so long trying to. I ran this map so many different ways and just could not end it 1 turn faster. So with a very unimpressive last turn where all of our units are sitting there waiting to get used, we just barely got to do anything. Fairly lackluster final turn, but if anyone can figure out how to go 1 turn faster here without relying on crits or dodges, I would love to see it. But anyway, that's Prologues 1 through 4. Things only get more interesting from here, so I hope you're excited. Thanks for watching.